Hello fellow guitarists and bassists, and welcome to the review of the CORT KX508 multi-scale guitar. Let's start with the specs. We have from different sources either mahogany or a kume body with poplar burl. It's a veneer, I checked. We have bolt-on 5-piece maple purple heart neck with Makassar ebony fretboard, lock-in tuners. We have two Fishman Fluence pickups, master volume, master tone, 3-way toggle switch, single saddle multi-scale bridge, and of course it's a multi-scale, so the scale length is 26.5 on the first string and 28 on the 8th string. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the review. And so let's start at the headstock. You can see it's a 4x4, and to be honest, it's the correct way of doing 8-string headstocks, because if you do this as an inline, first of all, it will be extremely huge, and second, it will be more prone to breaking. Here, it's a bit more compact and fits in a gig bag, which is not included with the guitar, and overall, it's rather nice. What I really want to talk about is those CORT lock-in tuners, because they are bloody awesome. As lock-in tuners, they function very well and, of course, keep the string in place without any extra winds, but in terms of ratio, they feel like at least 1:20, which is, once again, an amazing thing, because you have the needed precision for tuning 8th and 7th strings, which can be a problem with like standard 1:14 or even 1:16 ratio. And in terms of quality, they are amazing. Like really, I commend them. They are astonishingly good. And they also look rather nice. Also, we have a matching headstock, so we have a thin poplar burl veneer with CORT logo on top of it. And you can see there are no Truss Rod covers. And also you can see a triangle of shame. What is a triangle of shame? Well, as you can see, the fretboard is a multi-scale, so you are running into a situation where the nut is at an angle, and you can see that they cut the fretboard on the high end and they didn't cut it on the top part, which means the part of the fretboard goes over the nut. And yeah, this thing looks odd, so the fret wrap recommended not only to remove this astonishingly loud harp effect, Christmas stuff, to be honest. So fret wrap is needed, and also it covers this triangle of shame. On the backside, we are having serial number that tells us that this guitar was made in 2025, and we're also having Evolute, which increases the structural integrity of the headstock and prevents headstock breaks. And the other thing that definitely helps the headstock stay in place is the fact that Truss Rod is moved to the heel of the neck. So there are no Truss Rod covers here, and is once again keeps more material around the headstock and helps to prevent it from breaking. And I also need to make a separate mention about tuning stability. It's absolutely mid. So first of all, you can see that there is no straight pull of the strings through the nut to the tuner. Nothing crucial, also the nut itself is made out of plastic, which is nothing that bad in itself, like plastic nuts are completely viable, yet still it's not a Graftex, so it won't be as smooth and will affect tuning stability a little bit, but because it's angled and the part that's closer to your hand is rather sharp, you can just bump your finger into the edge of the nut, and it's not a pleasant feeling, I must say. So if you will be getting yourself this guitar, I genuinely would recommend you to just grab a file and just, smooth out this part. I would definitely do this if this was my personal guitar. And also the fact of extremely thin neck with no reinforcements and only one truss rod. This leads for this guitar being extremely susceptible to weather changes. And also because of the aforementioned things, you will need to tune this up on average each and every time you pick this guitar up from the stand. Like for example, right now it's in tune, so maybe it acclimatized to my location, but also you will need to tune this guitar up like each half an hour of active playing. Nothing crucial, it's what you on average expect from a guitar, yet still could have been better. And now let's go to the neck. And you can already see it's a 5-piece neck made out of maple and purple heart. Looks rather cool. Purple heart is not that common to see on the guitars. On average, you will see here 2 stripes of walnut. But in comparison to walnut, this purple heart has far more pores in it, so you will feel these 2 stripes under your hands. You can use it as some kind of a like guiding thing, or you may just like it or hate it in terms of feel, but I need to mention it. Now let's go to the neck feel, and my god, it's great. No, literally, it's amazing. So what do we have here? We have a thin D-shaped neck, and you know me, I'm a huge fan of flat necks, the one you usually find on Ibanez's, and this guitar has one of those. And because it's an 8-string, it's even flatter, so these flat parts of the neck are even more exaggerated, and because of it, it feels amazing. Like, really, I grabbed it and immediately fell in love with the feel of the neck. It's straight up amazing. In terms of dimensions, official measurements of the neck is 19.5 millimeters at the 1st fret and 21.5 at the 12th, which is extremely thin and, to be honest, thinnest of any guitar at this price point. This guitar costs around $850, $900. But of course, me being me, I remeasured this neck. And it's absolutely okay when the neck thickness fluctuates for around 0.1, 0.3 millimeters. But in our case, we are having a rather bigger difference. The neck at the 1st fret is 20.2 millimeters, and at the 12th, it's 22.3, so it's 0.7 millimeters thicker at the 1st and 0.8 thicker at the 12th, which is a rather significant difference, so much that I can even argue it doesn't follow the spec sheet. Still, neck feels absolutely amazing and I love it. And of course, neck itself in terms of like technology used is absolutely correct, so it's a bunch of radial cuts to the opposite way of the grain to one another, which is a perfect thing. Now let's go to the fretboard. Fretboard radius is 400 millimeters, which translates to almost 16 inches. It has 24 medium jumbo nickel frets and itself made out of the Makassar ebony. You can look at it and tell me, well, this thing looks like a piece of rosewood. And you kind of making a point here because yes, it looks similar to rosewood, but it's a bit darker and the streaks of black are a bit different. Like, first of all, they are more common, and second, they are more persistent all over the fretboard. And in terms of like wood difference in itself, Makassar ebony harder and more rigid material. On the fretboard, we can find a staggered offset fretboard markers, so they are on the top part of the neck until the 12th fret, and after the 12th fret they are on the bottom. Very usable. I hated them on my Valraven, but here I absolutely love them. And in terms of fretwork, the fret edges are absolutely fine, nothing poking out here. And in terms of fretwork in itself, I have some questions. First of all, this guitar was purchased from the store that includes, when you purchase the stuff from them, absolutely free, that the luthier will set up the guitar and work on any issues that will arise. And I've seen marker remains on the frets, so definitely some fretwork was done. And to be honest, it's terrible. Like, it's the first guitar that came from the CORT factory, and I mean almost all of the guitars and basses I've played came from the CORT factory. For example, this Harley Benton and all of my Ibanez's except the Japanese one were done on that factory, and it's the first guitar with really bad fretwork. Like, I had a CORT KX508, which is same manufacturer and same line of guitars, but far cheaper, and that CORT had a far superior fretwork, times better. So what happens here? First of all, the 20th fret looks like it's a bit popped out of its socket, and because of it, if you lower the action below like 1.5 millimeters, you get a constant high fret buzzing. so you can still hear it. And when I try to set up the guitar the way I like, with the minimal action, once again check the quality of the fretwork, by doing so, I achieved like 0.9, 0.8 millimeter action and run into the high frets on the 5th and the 15th fret of the first string, and afterwards I just return everything to how it was, which is a huge bummer because simply on the premise of the fretwork alone, it's a bad thing. It's really a bad thing, and it's the first guitar from the CORT factory that has a bad fretwork. So I'm not fully blaming this on CORT because, well, the fretwork probably was meddled with, but the fret popping out a little bit is definitely an issue done by CORT. In terms of truss rod adjustment, we are having one single truss rod, no reinforcements in the neck, and it's a spoke wheel, to be honest, far superior way than adjustment at the nut. And so adjusting the neck isn't a problem, you can do this easily, and I like it. I really hope that this thing become more and more popular, and in the end of the days will completely remove at the nut adjustment. And in terms of side markers, it's a standard plastic inlays. To be honest, I must say that a rather straight one compared to other stuff that I've seen from CORT. But yeah, not perfectly straight, but a rather good one. And the fretboard edges are nicely rolled in. So once again, no issues except for high frets, which is hell of an issue. And of course, neck meets the body at the neck joint, which is, in our case, is a bolt-on, and I don't like it because, once again, it doesn't have a smooth edge, which leads to you feeling it while playing. But because it's a multi-scale, reaching a 24th fret doesn't require you to meet the neck joint, so you can easily do this without touching it. But when we go to the 24th fret on a low 8th string, it becomes extremely problematic. And what the guitar genuinely lacks is a little bit of a cutaway here, because my wrist is kind of locked by this horn here, and it makes the upper axis on the low strings rather uncomfortable. In terms of body, we are having a standard Superstrut archtop, which is once again different in terms of specs compared to the previous KX model I had on a review, which you can check it out over here or simply on my channel. And let's measure it because it definitely feels thinner, like times thinner. It's 44 millimeters thick at its thickest part, which is 1.7 inches. And in its thinnest part, it's 1.38 inches thick, or 35 millimeters. And once again, sources state different materials. On official CORT website, it's stated as the body made out of a mahogany, and once again, I looked underneath the pickups. It's definitely some kind of a like reddish material, but I'm genuinely believing far more in some kind of a Nayato Meranti stuff, because this guitar is rather light. It weighs 3.6 kilos or 8 pounds flat. And as a result of a light body with a very wide neck made out of the heavy woods, you can expect neck dive, and a rather severe one. Like, this guitar is not that comfortable to sit with. So I would describe this guitar as neither heavy nor light in terms of like even a 6-string situation, but because it's an 8-string, it's definitely on the lighter side. In terms of ergonomic cutaways, we only having a big belly carve on the back, but there is one thing for which I really want to commend CORT. You can see that from the inner side of the guitar, All of the body edges are smoothed out. And this makes guitar incredibly comfortable to sit with, especially if you, like me, love to angle guitar a little bit to yourself, which is, I personally think, like the best way to sit with a guitar, but you get the point. And also it makes the belly carve a little bit more comfortable, which is nice. In the specifications, it's stated that this guitar has a poplar burl top. And, well, look at how nice it looks. We have a little bit of the poplar burl stuff, and we also have a little bit of a flame in it. Looks extremely nice. And to be honest, satin finish doesn't do it justice. But it's not a top, it's a veneer. Once again, look at this picture from underneath the pickups. It's a veneer. It's a very thin layer. And, well, still very nice of CORT to giving us this stuff, but it's not a top. It's a veneer. Doesn't affect the sound in any shape or form if you believe in tone wood. Next, we also having a black binding. Probably extremely hard to see, and I will make like a close-up pictures. One of my subscribers had a theory that it's done simply that if you ding the guitar on a binding, you won't have a mark here, but I also thought about it, and then I remembered this guitar has a satin finish, which means that the material of the body doesn't crack and chip, so paint doesn't go off. It also bends, so probably this won't be an issue. But it's also very odd that the guitar has the binding in the color of the body. It's very strange, especially adding to the fact that the guitar darkens out extremely over the edges. Like, it's probably very hard to see, but it's more of a like very dark blue finish rather than black. But still, it's extremely difficult to notice the binding. Still, let's go to the bridge. It's a single saddle, multi-scale bridge, and damn, it's full of issues. Because sometimes on the internet people mention that they run out of scale length adjustment. An odd thing. Well, I almost did the same, because the bridge is installed too far from the neck of the guitar or the pickups or whatever. It's just too far. Which means that almost all of the saddles, to maintain a perfect intonation, and on this guitar we are having set from 10 to 46 with 59 on the B string and 80 on an F sharp. And almost all the saddles are completely maxed out to the front. It maintains the intonation, so I didn't run out of the setup, but still, it's extremely close. And when I was looking into the guitar, when I was looking into it, I was looking at the holes for a string-through body construction and how they align with the holes in the saddles. Once again, far from perfect. And I was just pulling a little bit on the saddles or just pressing them down. And when I let go of one of the saddles, it completely catapulted itself off the guitar. I was very afraid I broke the screw, but luckily it was just screwed on like half a turn, which is an insane thing. But yeah, I reset it up the stuff and works just fine. It's good. But once again, it led to a few other issues. First one is the fact that when you change the strings, the string through body hole doesn't really align with the saddle. So on average, strings doesn't go through the hole in the saddle, it goes lower than it, and you need to manually press the saddle in and then pull the string through, which is very odd thing, and also ran into the issue when I was changing the high E string. It was extremely difficult to pull out. I don't know why, but still. And it's not all with this bridge, because some of the saddles are maxed out. The saddles themselves are out of the grooves, which should hold them in place. So you may see, I will have a picture that there are grooves that should hold the saddle once again in place and prevent it from moving from left to right. And some of those saddles are maxed out and once again standing on just a plain piece of metal. Nothing crucial, but once again, you're paying a lot for this guitar, it should be better. And the third issue, probably the stupidest one, is because almost all of the saddles are maxed out closer to the neck. The springs resonate, and this goes into the amp. So if you're playing stuff when you need to like play a note a few times and then just mute everything, you will have those things ringing out in the background, and sometimes they can even ring out while you're playing. If they are ringing while you stopped, you can cut it out in the recording, but in terms of like what you should do when it plays simply alongside you, I don't know. It's a very odd thing. And of course, on the back, we're having battery compartment. Battery compartment like battery compartment. Still has the stock battery, so like everything is fine here, no issues. Now let's go to pickups and electronics. We have 12 sounds in this guitar because of the famous Fishman modern pickups. So we are having 3-way toggle with push-pull on the volume that engages a second voicing. And then we are having a push-pull on the tone, which engages a split coil, and it's a split coil on inner coils of the pickups. So it will be either the inner coil of the bridge, or both inner coils, or the neck. There is no way how to make it sound on outer coils. And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Fishmans. They are functioning well, like no issues with them. Once again, I unscrewed the bridge pickup to just look at what's inside there, and there were a few issues. First of all, the pickups here are held without any springs on a piece of foam, and when those pieces of foam were installed on the pickup and pushed into the cavity, one of those pieces of foam simply broke out, and that's why after like certain adjustment, the bass part of the pickup simply didn't went up, which is a strange thing. I fixed it. But there are other issues. On this screw of the neck pickup, on the treble side, the thread is completely busted. So like I wanted to unscrew the neck pickup first, but then I understood that I can unscrew it, but screw it back will be impossible. And also be very careful with, once again, applying screwdriver to those pickups, because in my case, the thread here is extremely tight. So you can run into a situation where the screwdriver goes out of the screw head and it damages the screw itself. So be very careful not to screw everything up, pun intended. And in terms of sound, I'm not a huge fan of Fishmans. Like, they are really hyped pickups, but to be honest, they didn't like them. In terms of active sound, they sound like EMG with more mids. And to be honest, like, I don't like that abundance of mids. And on the passive sound, they sound like EMGs trying to sound like passive pickups. There are no passive pickups dynamic, if you ask me. Once again, it's not a bad pickup, but not my taste. I'm a fan of like standard passive pickups. And if I want active sound, you can still go for EMGs, and they will eat through batteries times slower than Fishmans. And if you ask, does the second voicing work on the coil split? Yes, it does. It definitely does. Overall, the voicings sound like EQ profiles, if you ask me, so I don't see points in them, but you will hear the tone demo, you can make your own judgment. I will compare this guitar to my other guitars with passive pickups, and we'll play some 6-string stuff compared to my guitars with EMG. And in terms of ergonomics, as I mentioned, a lot of neck dive sitting down, and you think that it's a Super Strat, it has the long upper horn, it should be better. No, because to have a good balance, the upper horn should reach at least 12 fret. And because here we have a longer scale length, and overall the horns on chords are shorter compared to any Ibanez, it has the same issue standing up. So you can see the guitar wants to go down. Right now it is held by the friction between my shoulder and the strap, but you can see if I move my arm, it will go down, so it wants to go like this. It's definitely the way how it feels comfortable and not pulling on my shoulder. So yeah, and if I, for example, jump with this guitar, I'll try to be very careful because I'm not sure about those strap pins. They are not as bad as, for example, on the Les Paul, but still, they are not as good as on Ibanez Prestigious. They are just the standard strap pens. And you can see the guitar went down. So yeah, in terms of balance, it's terrible. The other thing I absolutely love on this guitar is the position of controls. So once again, the toggle switch is close to your picking hand, but never gets in the way. And same can be said about the volume knob. So if you are a fan of having a volume closer to your hand, it's close enough. It will never be a problem. So you can, for example, do some kind of like swells. So it's not an issue. But at the same time, even if you want to palm mute a first string, it's not getting in the way. Which is extremely cool. I really like the positioning of the volume knob here. Close to your picking hand, but never gets in the way. Probably the most perfect position you can think about. I like it. And also, if for some reason you don't like the fact that the hardware itself is done in some kind of a like dark chrome color, while the pickups and the selector itself are black, and if you want to swap them out, or for example, if you have the same issue I had here where the volume potentiometer simply came loose, keep in mind there are screws that hold the knob on its place, but there are also like a friction stuff on top of the potentiometer. So my recommendation is to fully unscrew the screw inside the knob that holds it in place, and then just pull everything out. It's the safest way because theoretically the stuff can happen when you won't fully unscrew the knob and you'll start pulling it and can break stuff. So to prevent this, be careful and do as I mentioned above. And now let's jump to the tone demo. And this part is not like a review, it's more of my opinion on an 8 string. To be honest, I like them, but I don't see a point in them, because never throughout all of my time having it for review, and once again I got lended by the same person who lended me the KX100, I never once wanted to play something that includes all of the 9 strings. I can make an argument that I play different stuff, like for example, you can tune this guitar half step down and you can play Meshuggah, you can play Nevermore, and you can play Blind Guardian without any retuning, which is extremely nice. I love all 3 bands, so yeah, it's a fun thing. But there are some caveats. First of all, 26.5-inch scale length on a high E doesn't really impede my playing in any shape or form, but I would say that sets of 10s here feels like sets of 11s, so nothing that crucial if you ask me, but some parts of like solo playing where I need to make like a huge stretch basically became unplayable on this guitar. So like those things were hard to reach on 25.5, on 26.5, completely unreachable. In terms of 28-inch scale length on the F sharp. Once again, feels extremely nice with the 80 string here, which is like the thickest from Elixirs, but if you go for the set of Dodarios, you can probably find a thicker ones. It originally comes with a set of Dodario in UXLs, 9 to 80, which is like a good set here. And to be honest, if you want to go drop E, which is once again the thing I would recommend as a standard tuning aficionado, you should drop tune the 8 string because it's a dissonance that comes from A string being F sharp and the third string being G. So when you drop tune it, this dissonance disappears. So I would recommend you doing so. Other than that, I can also tell you that multi-scale fretboard is probably the correct way of approaching an A string, and it's not that difficult to adjust to, but if you want to play some chords on the lower positions, it can be problematic, both because of stretching and because holding any type of bar will require like complete hand readjustment, because this standard way simply doesn't work. But playing some solo stuff is rather nice. So yeah, overall, A string is a lot of fun, but I cannot justify purchase it for myself. Like, I would love to, but I probably won't. And I probably won't purchase this exact model because, once again, part of the issues I mentioned are rather common, and Fishmans are definitely not my jam. And so, let's start with my overall conclusion about this guitar. Well, let's be honest. It doesn't have any competitors, because even similar-ish in terms of specs, 8 strings, like for example from Ibanez, will cost you at least $200, $300 or $400 more, depending on when you live and maybe on some kind of a like sale. Second, it's definitely the cheapest guitar with 26.5 to 28 string scale length. The only competitor like I can mention is GOC guitars, but they are not a mass market, they are headless. So once again, I need to try them out before I make a conclusion. So if for some reason any of you owns a GOC, you can write your experiences down in the comments, or if you really want, you can send me a guitar for a review. I'll promise I won't do any bad to it. Except for a GOC, there is only like one brand that does a similar scaling that I can genuinely recommend for an 8-string use, and it's a Strandberg. And 8-string Strandbergs will cost you more than 2 times this guitar. At the same time, I cannot recommend you purchasing this guitar because of the amount of flaws I managed to find. Like misplaced bridge with, once again, each and every screw that holds it in place is misaligned in some kind of a sort, high frets, and overall Fishman fluences are also the most prone to some kind of an issue pickup. And I didn't really like them that much, but almost each and every multi-scale A string comes with 9-string Fishman fluence pickups, like this one. So yeah, I would love to love it. And before I went into the details, I absolutely love this guitar. Tuners on them are one of the best I've ever tried. Like, they are on par with Graphic Ratios, and I can even possibly think of telling that they're better than Godot, but yeah. Simultaneously with extremely high-end features, you're getting some absolutely basic stuff. Like, for example, you're getting an extremely nice lock-in tuners alongside the cheapest possible plastic nut. You are getting the highest and most expensive mass market pickup while getting nickel frets. And you are getting a very fancy finish and a poplar burl veneer. Yes, not a top, but still, it's a veneer. They could have just painted the body in solid black and call it a day, but simultaneously no lumen lay side dots. Like, lumen lays doesn't matter that much, but the fact that you have them is just kind of like elevates guitar to a more professional level. Simultaneously, this is the cheapest fully professional guitar, if we can call it so. Once again, the take about professional guitars is very subjective, and I can easily debunk it because there is nothing that makes guitar professional or not professional. But simultaneously, I probably would save myself some money and either purchase the cheapest 8-string possible, like those G4Ms and Harley Bentons, or I would grab myself a cheaper Ibanez that, yes, will not have Fishman active pickups, but I really don't need them. And the only thing I will be genuinely missing out is those extremely nice lock-in tuners that I absolutely love, and that I won't even recommend replacing for any other set of tuners. Overall, the objective score of this guitar will be somewhere around 6.5 out of 10, which is not that much. And I'm really disappointed because, damn, this guitar has everything to be perfect. The neck is amazing. The material choices are great. This one looks fancy, looks modern, but add this to the fact of rather subpar ergonomics, both sitting and standing up. I can't recommend you purchasing it, unfortunately. Or if you're planning on buying one, buy it in person. So if you are able, order it in the store, in your city, unbox it, check everything, like give a guitar proper setup right there in a store, and if everything works out fine, good, go with it. And same goes if you want to purchase it used. Be very careful, look at the photos of the saddles. If you can see the edges of the screws inside the saddle, probably it has some issues with alignment of the bridge itself. You can re-drill it and maybe no one will even be able to notice it, but I cannot be sure about this. Overall, I cannot give this guitar a high score because it had everything to be perfect. This guitar was close to perfection, but unfortunately, a low quality assembly and bad QC is what takes it down, unfortunately. And till this day, I never seen a CORT guitar with the good bridge, which is a very funny thing because I've seen 3 different guitars. I had one with vintage 6-point RAM, it was awful. The KX100 had a bad hardtail bridge, and this one has a decent bridge but completely misaligned. Out of those 3, I probably take KX100. And the saddest part is that KX100, I had in a review, is genuinely better at being a guitar than this one. So yeah, this is my review. If you enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe for more. If you have your experience with KX509, write it down in the comments and share it. Once again, I'll probably pin you, or if there will be few people with their reviews, I'll just combine them in one comment with, once again, every credentials and just pin it. So yeah, overall, this concludes my review. So thank you very much for watching, and play good guitars and basses. And bye.